Okay, welcome everybody back to the longestshir.com, www.longestshir.com. It's starting to feel now finally like a longestshir.com. We're in the last few hours, Mirz Hashem. It's been a great ride. We're going to get there. And, you know, before we started, our goal was originally 200,000. Last night we sat together. We decided we didn't decide 200,000 because that's what we needed, but because that's what we thought we could do. Last night we got together. We decided to move the marker over to 250,000. And a few minutes ago we were at the number 195, 368, something around there. And I want to thank this hour's sponsor. Walter just came in, and Walter and Esty Feinblum sponsored $10,000 to take us over to the 205 mark. Amazing. So this shiur is in honor of Rabbi and Dr. Bronner, not just from Walter and Esty, but also Bernie and Temi and the Monderer family. And we thank you. And Moshe and Amir and everybody in Israel and everybody. The grandchildren, the Oliners, Odit and Zach. Not the Machtonim, Odit and Zach at least, yeah. Odit the ganze Geschäft. No, Baruch Hashem. So let's keep it coming. We're going to get there. We appreciate it. The big giveaway now is this. The last hour, get your finances in order, because the last hour we are going to be giving away the only existent, signed copy of Rav Moshe Feinstein's Igris Moshe. Rav Moshe Feinstein's Igris Moshe, an American classic, a Jewish classic, a halachic classic, signed by Rav Moshe Feinstein. We're going to be giving that away in the last hour to the biggest donor. And please, everyone, keep the gifts coming in. The real reward is not the Svarim and the sign, Muhammad Ali, and everything else we've been giving away. The real reward is supporting Jewish education and being part of history that you've all been a part of. Those of you watching at thelongestshir.com online, you could still donate online. You could text us by texting 41444. Text the word Torah, and we'll take it from there. Okay, let's figure out where we are next. Good. All right, we've had some serious shiurim, we've had some quirky shiurim, we've had some spiritual shiurim. It's time to shake it up a little bit. And now it's the people of the joke. Is there a Jewish tradition to Larry David? This is really about what Jewish jokes say about the Jewish people and what we can learn from them and their connection to Yiddishkeit. You think about it now when you're going through this, but a rabbi suffers a severe heart attack, and he's confined to a hospital for several weeks. The synagogue's president pays him a visit and says, I want you to know, Rabbi, that last night the board of directors voted a resolution wishing you a speedy recovery. It passed 12-9. The idea in this heart attack rabbi joke, what's the vort? What's the idea behind it? There is tremendous depth behind it. The Gemara in Nida, Daf Chaf Gimel Amid Aleph. What's the Gemara in Nida? It's a very heavy Gemara, and the rabbis are discussing different types of fetuses by which a mother would have the status and the din of Nida, which a mother would take on after she gives birth. As the Gemara goes on, we see that Rav Yirmiyah throws out a couple of completely random questions about this subject to Rav Zera. What if the fetus looks like a seahorse? He asks. Now, what happens? All of a sudden, Rav Zera turns and says, get out of the base medrash. Puk chazi labra. Are you crazy? What are you doing this for? So the Gemara said, why did Rav Yirmiyah actually ask these questions? You know what the Gemara said? Rav Yirmiyah asked these questions to lighten the serious mood of this very heavy-duty subject, to lighten the mood and ask these kind of crazy questions. Rashi tells us that all these little tricks he pulled because they were solely wanted people to come together through laughter. I want to get the exact words of Rashi on how he said. It's a beautiful Rashi. Again, it's a strange sugya. This Rav Yirmiyah is asking wacky questions. He gets thrown out of the base medrash. And they asked, why did he ask these questions? He asked these questions because he wanted to be able to lighten the mood. It was a pretty tense situation. Serious shirim about why good things happen to bad things happen to good people, and so on and so forth. We needed to lighten it up a little bit. So Rashi says, Tav Chaf Gimel Amid Aleph. Why did he do this? Lidei Gichuk. He wanted to bring him to laughter. B'chol tachbulas halu, with all these crazy questions. Asag Rabbi Yirmiyah, lahavi Rab Zera lidei sachak. V'lo sachak, and he wasn't laughing. Why? To aser la'adam shiamale schok piv. Because it's aser for a person to fully laugh. And Rab Zera was being very machmir. But Rav Yirmiyah thought he could use a little laughter. He could use a little laughter in his life. Rav Yirmiyah is known to be a jokester throughout Shas. How do we know that? There's another Gemara where Rav Yirmiyah, and you wouldn't believe it's a Gemara unless I told you it, but it's a Gemara in Bava Basra, Chaf Gimel Amid Beis. Okay? The Gemara in Bava Basra, Chaf Gimel Amid Beis says that if you find a bird within 50 amos, that's around 75 feet, 50 amos of a man's property, it belongs to the owner of the property. If you find it outside of the 50 amos of the property, it belongs to the person who finds it. Rav Yirmiyah asks the question, if 1 foot of the bird is within 50 and 1 foot of the bird is outside 50, what's the halacha? The Gemara says, Biglal zeh zarku Rav Yirmiyah lebeis medrash. Because of this crazy question, they threw Rav Yirmiyah again. The guy Nebuch keeps getting thrown out of the base medrash, but he's the clown. He wants to just cheer everybody up from these types of sugyas. What was the first joke in Jewish history? The first joke in Jewish history. Rav Hirsch points it out in his commentary on the Chumash when he says the Jews are standing at the water. They're mamish there at the Nile. They've just come out of Egypt, the Dead Sea. They just come out of Egypt and they're stuck. They turn back to Moshe and they say, Moshe, hamevli ein kvarim b'mitzrayim. Was there not enough places to bury us in Egypt that you had to schlep us here? What is that? That's a joke. You understand? They made light of the situation. They're about to be killed. They have Egyptians coming after them. They got nowhere to go. So they turn and they say to Moshe, you couldn't leave us to be buried back there in Egypt? Rav Hirsch says that's the first instance of Jews developing the special trait of gallows humor, survivor humor, that Jews have become exceptional at. Rav Hirsch sees that as literally a makor, a coping mechanism. So one theory is that Jews and joking is simply a coping mechanism. It's our way to survive. I'm going to argue in the next few minutes that we have together that they're so much more. The Dutch and the Spanish had painting. The British had literature. Americans had music. The Jewish art was for us to find a way to express ourselves and our circumstances b'derech malitza, through the use of schok v'kalos rosh, through the use of a joke and a good laugh. The Jewish concept and ideal of the mishpacha, the home. Rav Hirsch talks about the central role of the home in the Exodus from Egypt, when the Jews are asked to take a sel of beis avos, a sheep for each of their beis avos, their fathers' homes. Rav Hirsch says it was at that moment the Jews were crystallizing the concept of a Jewish home, the uniqueness of a Jewish home and what it stands for. There's a great shot from my father-in-law's great uncle, Reb Latzi Fishoff. He asks, the famous where Paro tells Moshe, listen, you want a little vacation? Is that what you need to take the edge off? So go a couple days. Go a couple days yourself. You're religious people. Do what you got to do, but you're coming back. What does Moshe turn to him? Moshe turns to him and says, Ubizakneinu ubenarenu nelech. We're going with our children, our women. We're going with everybody. Not just a couple religious people. We're going with everybody. What was he telling Paro? Paro said, I get the idea the guys need a couple days away. They need to get a guy's getaway, a man trip. Go for it. Do what you got to do. You know what Moshe was turning back and saying? This is a Jewish family. We're not going away somewhere on our own outside of Egypt. We're taking the kids, we're taking the family, we go together as a whole. The role of the family unit plays such an integral part. Kibbud Av V'Em, the famous Gemara in Kedushin of Dama ben Nesina. Dama ben Nesina was known, even as a non-Jew, for how good he was and how difficult the role was of honoring a parent. And therefore, the role of family features prominently in jokes. A mother's having a very tense relationship with her 14-year-old son. Screaming and fighting constantly going on in the house. She finally brings him to a psychoanalyst. After 2 sessions, the doctor calls the mother into his office and she says, your son, he tells her, he's got an Oedipus complex. Oedipus Schmedipus, the mother answers, as long as he loves his mother. That's a Jewish family joke. 3 elderly women, Jewish women, seated on a bench in Miami Beach, each one bragging about how devoted her son is to her. How devoted her son is to her. The first one says, my son is so devoted for me that last year for my birthday, he gave me an all-expense paid cruise around the world, first class. The second one says, my son's even more devoted. For my 75th birthday last year, he catered an affair for me, even gave me a fly down my good friends from New York. The third one says, my son is the most devoted. 3 times a week he goes to a psychiatrist. He pays him $120 an hour. And what does he speak about the whole time? He speaks about me. The role of the Jewish family, the mother, how the ethos and all of it is all tied together, already is developed from the Yetzias Mitzrayim. There's another aspect, the aspect of needing to have naches from our children. You explain that concept to someone who's not Jewish. I don't even know a good translation for it. Naches, how do you translate naches somebody? There's naches. Naches is already a ritualized concept of having naches. There's 2 Jewish women who haven't seen each other in 20 years. They run into each other on the street. Nu, how's your Deborah? You mean the one that married the lawyer? Yeah, they're divorced. Oh, I'm sorry, but she got married to a surgeon. Mazel tov, but they also divorced. But wait, now she's married to a very successful architect. So much naches from one daughter, so much naches. Jewish intelligence and the ability to be sharp. The Yiddish cup that was documented in a very controversial book called The Bell Curve. Bell Curve was put together by former professors at Harvard who had traced and looked at a longitudinal study about Jews and their intellect. And they came to the conclusion that Jews are smarter. Being Jews, we disagreed with it. We couldn't accept it. Not us. It can't be us. Don't call us smarter. That's just going to be trouble for us. We don't want to hear it. We're not that smart. But this idea of the possibility of Jewish intelligence, or as Malcolm Gladwell calls it, the Tel Aviv cluster, this IQ level that's in the range of central Tel Aviv compared to the rest of the world. The idea of Jewish intelligence is not something innate. There aren't Mar Makomos that talk about Jewish brilliance being born from some treasure that was given into the Jewish mind. You'll be hard-pressed to find a source for that. Where then is the source for Jewish intelligence? Jews believe it's simply being people of the book, being committed to reading, to knowing, to exploring, trying to figure out a way to survive, and to be curious. Woody Allen likes to point out that Reb Tzvi Chaim Yisrael, an Orthodox scholar of the Torah and a man who developed a whining to an art unheard of in the West, was unanimously hailed as the wisest man of the Renaissance by his fellow Hebrews, who totaled the 16th of 1% of the population. He's making fun of the fact that we love calling our Rabbanim geniuses when we're talking about a small sampling of people who ever observed his genius and were able to solve it. But the truth is, Judaism places a premium on the mind. The one who's going to lead the community is not necessarily who has all the other features that's lauded in other communities. It's the one who's able to learn. The Lamdan, the Rosh Yeshiva, the one who's successful in that avenue. Which Jew becomes an accountant? A Jewish boy who stutters and who can't stand the sight of blood. Famous Jewish joke about intelligence. Levine meets his friend Schwartz. I heard your factory burned down. He says, shh, Schwartz answers. Next week. That gets to a new area, the area of Jewish ethics, Jewish business ethics. Jackie Mason has a theory on Jewish business ethics that Jews have sometimes found a way to play the rules differently out of a need to survive. Jews throughout history were locked out of so many vocations, so many jobs, so many ways to make a living, that they needed to find some other way to be a success. And sometimes they were so difficult that the Jew had to find a way to cut the corner, to make it another way. That's the idea of next week. That's the idea of next week. You have the idea of Jewish business ethics. You have a small Jewish man is sitting on a boat deck next to a huge sleeping Texan. The Jew gets seasick and ends up vomiting all over the Texan. The Texan starts to move and stir. He opens his eyes, and to his horror, he sees himself covered with vomit. You feel better now? The little Jew asks him. Jewish being sharp, twisting and turning, that was always seen as jokes that make Jews uncomfortable because it says something about outsmarting the other, about outsmothering the other. That led to a whole other realm of Jewish jokes, and that was self-loathing, Jewish self-hatred. That's a serious subject. Jewish self-hatred, we know plenty of Jews who have developed theories why the Jews are racist, why the Jews are a difficult people, why we lose our claim to the land. Those kind of things, which come many times from Jews, are sometimes our worst enemy. But that's already rooted. When you look through Tanakh, you look in the early stages of Sefer Yoshua, and you see already from the beginning, as soon as we enter the land, and divine providence has lifted up from upon us, Jew turns against Jew. We spoke about a lot in the last few hours about the role of Achdus and coming together, and not to turn against one another, not to break that bond. But from the beginning of Tanakh till the end, there is one theme. And that is what happens when we lose that bond. You know, Yaakov turns to his sons and he says, Hey, asvu va'agidu lachem. Gather together and I will tell you. And the message is, says the Rishoner, Hey, asvu. You will only hear my message if you gather together. If we can't figure out a way to come together, we'll never hear the message of Judaism. We'll never understand what we stand for and what we're there. This idea of self-loathing is transferred even sometimes into the Nebuch Jewish husband. A young woman walks into a dinner party in the arm of a much older man. At the dinner, the lady sitting next to the woman says to her, That's a beautiful diamond you're wearing. In fact, it's the most beautiful diamond I've ever seen. Thank you, the young woman replies. This is a famous diamond. It's called the Platnik diamond. Oh, a diamond with a name, the first woman says. How romantic. Is there a story behind it? Oh, yes, the diamond even comes with a curse. A curse? What's the curse? She points to the Jew next to her, Mr. Plotnik right over here. The idea of loathing, of making fun of the Jewish husband, the idea of mocking our scenario, again is a survival technique of trying to cope, of trying to survive. There are halachas of Asara Zehuvim. What's the halacha of Asara Zehuvim? It's brought down in the Shulchan Aruch Choshen Mishpat. The halacha of Asara Zehuvim is if the husband gets annoyed and frustrated and says, I can't wait anymore for her to light the Shabbos candles. I got to get out of here. He's being impetuous. And the husband goes ahead and lights the Shabbos candles. The Shulchan Aruch and Choshen Mishpat says she could take him to Beis Din and sue him because he took her covet away. He took her mitzvah away. She can take him to Beis Din over it. And Jews have an ability, not between interspouse, but in shul. Shul becomes a hot button place for Jews to be able to turn on one another. Jews to turn on one another. One of the classic ones, really one of the classic ones, where the new rabbi comes to shul. And when the new rabbi's in shul, he's looking around and he's trying to find out, what do we do here? Some of the group wants to stand for Shema. Some of the group wants to sit for Shema. And they come in to make their cases before the rabbi. The group, they call them the Schwartzman group. The Schwartzman group comes in and says, it's always been our minhag to stand. It's always been our minhag to stand in shul. Okay. Then comes the Finkelsteinberger group. They come in and they say, no, it's always been our minhag to sit down for the Shema. And over there, they're fighting and beating each other up in the rabbi's office till finally the other guy, Goldenberger, raises his hand and says, that's the minhag in our shul. The fighting and the machlokes. Jews have made a ritual over machlokes. So much so that the shiur that I'm going to be given at 4 p.m. is going to be about the nature of Jewish machlokes. How do we understand the role of Jewish machlokes? How do we understand the role? One more area of jokes in particular is Judaism trying to deal with the subject of assimilation. a very difficult issue facing the Jews. And so many families are touched by the issue of assimilation, and the Jews turned it into an art form. They turned the struggle of their own assimilation into an art form. Shmuel Moskowitz is talking to a friend of his. He's upset that he couldn't join the Grosse Pointe Golf Club. He's upset that he couldn't join. I don't understand it. He said, I told them, my name is Shmuel Moskowitz, and I wanted to join the club. Sammy, his friend said, the club's restricted. They don't let Jews in. But Sammy really wants to join. So he takes speech lessons. He learns about boats. He tries to eat corned beef on white bread with lettuce and mayonnaise. And 1 year later, he appears at the same door wearing a conservative three-piece suit and a copy of the Wall Street Journal tucked near his arm. And the doorman lets him see the manager of the club. The manager says, may I help you, sir? Yes, Sammy replies with a clipped, nice New England accent. I'm here to inquire about membership to your esteemed establishment. What's your name? Asked the manager. Sammy says, my name is Winthrop Van Horten III. And where do you live? Asked the manager. Connecticut, of course. Where else? What is your income? Asked the manager. My wealth is something I never discuss with strangers, replies Sammy. But I don't mind telling you that I own skyscrapers in Manhattan, several factories in northern New Jersey. Now, just one more question before you become a member, says the manager. What's your religious affiliation? Sammy's chest swells with pride at the thought of becoming a member, and he says, I'm a goy, I'm a goy. Jews trying to shake their identity as a way to fit in, to become just like everybody else. But God had much bigger plans for these people. They are not going to lose their identity. They're not going to be gone as a people. They have too much to give to the world. There's too much of a mission that our Jewish people have. And therefore, because of it, as much as the Jew fights it throughout history, as a Jew fights his identity and who he is to become something else, he can never lose the fact you'll always recognize that Jew on vacation, no matter what he's wearing. And that is because there's something different about a Jew. But now let's talk serious. With that little break for a little bit, let's talk tachlis. What's the nature of comedy in Judaism as a whole? What's the nature of comedy? The Maharal writes, the Maharal comments on there's a Gemara, there's a great Gemara, it's in Brachas, it's also a Medrash. It goes through God's schedule on any given day. All right, have you ever wondered, what's God's schedule? And the Medrash goes on to say that God spends time going through the books of who's done what and who's done everything else. And then the Medrash says what God does is then God is sha'ashue, is laughing. God is laughing, mesachek im halev yasan. In the last 3 hours, God is mesachek im halev yasan. He's having fun with the Leviathan. The Leviathan is going to be the great behemoth, the great animal that the Jews are going to eat at the Sudas Mashiach at the end of time. So what does it mean, this strange medrash in this Gemara, that the Jews are mesachek im halev yasan, that they're having fun with the Leviathan? Says the Maharal, you know what it means that God is having fun with the Leviathan? We're asked to be ubalachta b'drachav, to follow in the ways of God, to be like God, to imitate God. And God is saying, just like I have time in my day to laugh, a Jew must always find time in their day to laugh. That's what the Maharal says. That's what the Maharal says. A wonderful Gemara in Tanis, 22a. Eliyahu Hanavi is having a discussion about who he thought in the crowd is going to receive Olam Haba, is going to receive a spot in the world to come. One of the people he pointed to were the clowns in the marketplace who would cheer up people who were sad, right? He says that clown over there is going to get Olam Haba. Out of all the normal people, he said the clown. And the idea of the Gemara is the one who's able to make a person feel uplifted with a joke, with a good line, that is something to be rewarded. There is Olam Haba in that. And the Orech Laner begins to ask ourselves, wait a second, But I thought sometimes leitzonis is not allowed. I thought scoffing is not allowed, laughing, making fun. Don't we Jews look down upon it? When is laughter of value? When is laughter not of value? And the Aruch LaNer in his commentary on Shas says a huge yesod. It depends the kind of joke you're telling. If the kind of joke you're telling is the kind of joke that just brings people together, is the kind of joke that brings somebody up when they're feeling down, that's a ben olam haba. That's somebody who deserves a world to come. But if your joke is a joke that divides people, that mocks something sacred and throws it to the ground, the Aruch LaNer says that's when the Gemara tells us, Asr l'malei schok pino. You don't fill your mouth with that kind of laughter. That's not for a Jewish mouth. A Jewish joke is a joke that needs to make people feel better about themselves, allow them to cope with their circumstance, allow them to get along with other people better, to make light of a difficult situation so that they can handle it. That's the idea. That's the idea of a joke. That's the nature behind it. You know, for years at YU, I used to do the Purim spiel. And for years, that meant I was making fun of great Rosh Yeshiva and making fun of Rebbeim. And afterwards, I wondered, after it was done, do I have to apologize for all those jokes? So I wanted to trace with you, is that kind of humor allowed? I mean, almost everybody here remembers they themselves made fun of their teachers growing up, or at least they were friends with the kid in class who made fun of their teachers growing up. What's the halacha about that? What does the halacha say about that? So there's a Sefer Maritz. The Maritz was the Rav, the chief rabbi of Chust. Chust is the hometown of my grandmother, was from Chust. Rav Dushinsky was the rabbi. So he had a case that came to him that in town, they wanted to make a Purim skit about the brothers selling Yosef into slavery. Okay, a funny subject, why not? So he wanted to make a Purim spiel about the brothers selling Yosef into slavery. So he said, number one, there's a rule. Kol hakore pasuk b'shir hashirim. If you're reading chopped up parts of the story and you're not telling the full context, you're destroying the Torah. That's one. You don't make a Purim skit about parts of the Torah, pieces of it. Number two, he said it's the isser of mitzvah haba ba'avera. What's mitzvah haba ba'avera? It's doing a mitzvah, which is cheering people up, but via an avera. It's like using a stolen lulav. Number three, he says, you know why you can't use the Mechiras Yosef thing? How many Tanaim suffered because of it? What Tanaim? So we read on Yom Kippur and Tisha B'Av, we read the Eila Eskara, the poem about the 10 martyrs. And the poem says that this happened ba'avor na'alayim, because of the shoes. Why? That the Caesar turned to the 10 martyrs and said, what would you do to somebody who sells their own brother for a pair of shoes? And the Shvatim were, of course, accused of either throwing their brother in the pit or selling him into slavery, one of the two. And therefore, that came back to haunt the Asara Haruge Malchus, those great Tanaim. So the Maritz says, be careful about making a joke out of that. So I dug a little further. The Sefer Kinyan Torah, which is written by the Mashgiach of the Chevron Yeshiva. So the Bachrim came to him in the yeshiva, said, we want to make fun of the rabbis. We want to do a Purim skit. So, I mean, it's self-serving. They can't ask him. He's the one they're making fun of. So it's kind of hard to ask him, but they asked him. And he said, these are the problems. Number one, malbim pnei chaveiro barabim. If you embarrass your friend in public, in front of people, it's like shvichas damim. It's like murder. It's the Gemara in Erechin. Says it's tantamount to murder. It's like murdering somebody. Number two, it's lashon hara. It's speaking bad about somebody else. So here's the question. Let's say I had the permission in YU from the Rebbeim. You had the mechila. Go ahead, make fun of me. By the way, I give a clear green light. Since I've done it for years, I always give people a green light to students to do what they want with me. But can the Rebbeim be mochel? Can they be mochel on the kavod? Can the Rebbeim say, go ahead, make fun of me? And is it not lashon hara if they don't mind the jokes and what's being said with them? So he discusses whether mechila is possible. And he thinks mechila is not so possible. You know why? They can't know beforehand unless you show them the whole script. So are you going to show them the whole script and every detail ahead of time of the comedy skit of what's going to be? That's kind of hard. I mean, that ruins all the fun if they're going to see the whole skit ahead of time. Why we did it in YU ultimately was for one reason. Rav Shechter told us in Shiur that YU is seen, from YU's vantage point, as a continuation of the great Volozhin Yeshiva. Right? Rav Soloveitchik comes from the Brisker Rav. He's the grandson of the Brisker Rav. The Brisker Rav was one of the Rosh Yeshivas in Volozhin. That makes YU, in a sense, a continuation of Volozhin. In Volozhin, they were famous for their over-the-top, no-holds-barred Purim skit. It was led for a couple years by none other than one of the great mystics of the Jewish people. The person who would have been last on my list, who I would have guessed would have led the Purim skit, was Rav Avram Yitzchak Kook, the great first Ashkenaz chief rabbi of Israel. He led the Purim skit. According to the legend, he imitated the great Rosh Yeshiva, the Netziv, and the Rosh Yeshiva said, the amount that he made me laugh because of how he made fun of me, he earned his Olam Haba 10 times over. So the tradition in Volozhin was that you can be mochel on making fun of the Rebbeim. If the Rebbeim go ahead and say, and the Rebbeim say, go for it. Next. Rav Avadia Yosef was asked about a Purim Rav. Rav Avadia Yosef was asked about it. Rav Avadia Yosef was fine with it. His one caveat was cross-dressing. Rav Avadia Yosef says, as long as we avoid the cross-dressing issue, we are going to be fine. We are going to be good. Okay? So bottom line, how do we stay away from the whole problem? It seems the conclusion is you don't touch Yosef jokes. That was a sore subject. You don't touch Yosef jokes. You stay away from psukim. You don't do the cross-dressing things. And once you stay away from that, you have the Volozhin tradition. It could be at that point a permissible vocation. So that's the nature of laughter and joking from the eyes of halacha. From the eyes of halacha. There is one more area to discuss when talking about jokes in Judaism or laughter in Judaism, and that's of course the case of Sarah Imenu. Sarah laughs when she finds out she's going to have a child, and she's held accountable for that laughter. I'm going to have someone my age is going to have a child, and she's blamed for the tzchok. Why is she blamed for that laughter? The Ibn Ezra says she's blamed for that laughter because of lack of emunah, that Hashem is kol yachol, that she didn't accept that God was all capable. The problem was not the laughter. The problem was the lack of faith at that moment. And the proof that the laughter was not the problem, says the Ibn Ezra, what did they name their child? Yitzchak, from Yitzachek. There will be laughter. Laughter is not the issue. To laugh in difficult times, for a Jew to find a way to express their emotions and laugh when the going is difficult, it's okay. It's all right. But it can never come with a lack of emunah. It needs to come with a strengthening of our emunah, a strengthening of our faith, of what we believe. There's another laughter to talk about. There's another laughter. The word tzachok and why it was Yitzchak's name. It's funny. Yitzchak is associated with a very difficult, a tough, as we said. Rav Yaakov Kamenetsky said Rav Yitzchak had a strong, very intimidating personality. And that's why he has the most minimal role in the Torah. Between Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, Avram's a big showcase piece. He's the man of chesed. Yaakov's a big showcase piece. He's called Tiferes. He's the perfect blend of all of them. Yitzchak is the one who sort of gets the short change. He gets the short end of the stick. He gets the smallest screenplay time. And the question is why? And Rav Yaakov Kamenetsky says, because ultimately Yitzchak's mode of serving God is not, that needs to be muted. That idea of strength, of fear, of trepidation, that Jews tend to mute. So it's ironic that what was the name that he got? The name that he got was Yitzchak. His name was the one that was laughter. And the question is why? Why should the one whose name is Yitzchak be the one who has sort of the tough personality? I saw a very original insight from the Meshech Chachma. The Meshech Chochmah says, you know why he got the name Laughter? What do you think he did when he found out that Yaakov did a trickaroo with Esav and the birthright and the wholesale? It tells you about Esav's emotion. Esav let out a big cry. What did Yitzchak do? If you go to that section in the Torah, when Yitzchak found out that Esav took his birthright, that Yaakov took Esav's birthright, it says that he tells Esav, I'm sorry, I got nothing left for you. What was his emotional reaction? We're not told about his emotional reaction. Says the Meshech Chochmah, you know what he did? All he could do is he laughed. That's why he's Yitzchak. What else is he going to do? He tried everything he could to make sure it goes to Esav. He had a plan with Esav. This is going to be yours. Esav, we got the code. It's going to be yours. I'm passing it on to you. And then he sees that quiet kid who's done nothing his whole life. Yaakov Ishtam, Yoshev Oalim, who's sitting in a tent. He sees that kid, a chip off the old block of his mother, is sitting there, keeping to himself, comes in, and suddenly he's got the birthright. What else could Yitzchak do at that moment but let out a laugh? And the Meshech Chochmah says that's why his name is Yitzchak. That was the emotional response he had after that circumstance, after that laughter. We have a few more minutes before we get to the next shiur. And I said as we're trying to take advantage of every minute. And last shiur at the end, we were learning Karva El Nafshi. We're learning about the process of becoming close with God, an exploratory process. And the idea that we shared at the end of last shiur was the idea of you got to do it step by step. You're going to get overwhelmed. We have a fear. The fear of becoming better is that all of a sudden it means we're going to have to make demands of ourselves that we can't meet up with. If we start getting into this whole Musar thing and start going to shul, it's a never ending. It's a slippery slope. Suddenly the rabbi's going to have me doing this, and I got to change that, and we got to change this, and it never ends. Says Rav Avram Tzvi Kluger, right? Says Rav Avram Tzvi Kluger, that's not what this is about. This is about getting in touch with yourself. Start with that. Forget about the big change. Start with that. Make broad stroke categories and get in touch with yourself. Let's deepen this idea. Nitbonen l'regayim b'mesuper adheina. Let's talk about what we've been saying until now. To really root, what do we do? Haketayim harishonim de'os aleph. The first we talked about was the letter aleph. The basics, A, the ABCs. Misaprim al kach sha'or eino zakuk mitzad tivo. Right? We told about that the light isn't necessary for its nature, lahayer es el hakli. Right? It's not natural to illuminate in the kli. Tzarich letzamtzem atzmo tzimtzum achar tzimtzum lara kli. What he's saying like this. You can't just turn on the lights in one shot. You can't just change everything. You got to be able to do things step by step. Okay? You can't all of a sudden expect light to fill up your whole kli. I'm going to wake up, I'm enlightened. Suddenly I read a book, I'm a new man. I read a book, I'm changed forever. The light's on, the existential lights, the lights of who I am, suddenly that's changed. He says, no, that's not how it works. Hadavar eino ololo b'nakel. Full change doesn't happen like that overnight. There's an order. Yachol kol evchad lahavchin zos. Everybody could really test that. Everybody could really test that. Bokoshi shel hashkamas haboker. Right? Talk about it in terms of waking up in the morning. Right? Waking up in the morning. Right? Waking up in the morning. Shehi ma'avar chad shel ridas hanashama. When you wake up in the morning, we start by the soul descending into the body. Right? The soul descends into the body. You're like born anew when you wake up in the morning. But the second moment, you start to wake up. Now the soul gets antsy. You want to start doing something. Okay? It's hard to get the two to jive. Your soul starts to experience a little bit. Your soul starts to wake up a little bit. Your body doesn't want to get out of bed. Your body wants to say, your soul wants to move. You have a pairing up problem over here. Something's not going to match. Kasha hadavar avura umiyasra. It's very difficult. So what do? What's the next step? But also ace, at that moment, at that time, right? remember, let's go back to our analogy that we said in the last year. We're talking about someone who knows something clear, but it's much different just because you know something clear, how you could pass that information over. It's not so simple. You may know it clear, but you have all the context, so you understand it easily. But to pass that information over to somebody else, you need the backdrop, you need all the explanation, you need all the other stuff that goes into it. So what do you do? And by the way, that's really an analogy of us talking to ourselves, to our soul. We may understand what it means to be enlightened, but we need to really get that message to ourselves. So what do you do? Nimtza sha'or shebo ha'dayan chaser kli. The light that you have ready to go inside of you is missing a kli. Your body's not ready for it. It's a shock to the system. Your body does not want to get out of bed. So you have this neshama that's revved up and ready to go, but you got this body that's nowhere near interested. You have a soul that's hungry for something, but you don't want to make these changes. You don't want to do any of that. It's work. It's a lot of work. You don't want to do any of it. So we say as follows. Zeh hasibush shibush gam mipnei acherim nichla min achever v'chash imo shelo banuach me'achar she'eno shalom beino lebein atzmo ne'edar shlemos gam beino lesovavenu. This clash between you and yourself is the primary cause of your clash with the people around you. Because you are not comfortable in your own skin, you feel guilty. You don't feel good about yourself. You don't feel good. You know you should be doing better, and you're not making those attempts. That guilt spills over into your other relationships. That spills over into the other people you're interacting with, that you're having an experience with. Ki apnimius nisteris betocho shel adam. Your inner core is hidden within you, and it becomes revealed al yedei mashenase beino lesvivaso. It has moments where it becomes revealed, where you interact with others. If you're not at peace with the light that's within you, mitvate hakli hanitchev nisvaze. The kli on the outside breaks, and you become a broken person. You're a difficult person. You're somebody who people can't seem to get along with. Shehi mishameshet la'adam kli rachav yoser v'goliv yoser. And you try to stretch and bend yourself in ways that don't fit who you are. You try to get yourself connected to things, addicted to things that aren't meeting your soul, but you're trying to fill a void. You're trying to fill a gap that can't be filled because you're using the wrong filler. Now he brings his analogy to his conclusion. But when a person is good with themselves, they're shalem with themselves. They're not at war with themselves anymore. They don't try to fight who they are. Memela nifelis shlemus gambeno lesovavenu. You could finally be good with the people around you. Oaz mavchin sheklal v'klal. You suddenly realize there was never a struggle between you and other people when you are good with yourself. You can't get mad at others. If you are good, you are content, you are at peace, why does X bother you? Why the heck should X bother you? Are you fine right now? Are you breathing right now? Do you have your life right now? Are you living better than 99.9% of all of humanity in the history of human existence? Yes. So why are you hawking about X and Y? It's only because something is wrong in you that you haven't fixed yet. Otherwise, we would never let these things bother us. We would never lose our cool. Something is not shalem within ourselves. And it's that hunger, that need to fix it, that makes us get upset at other people. That's the key so far. When a person is good with themselves, he's good with his surrounding. You begin to realize there was no tension. Your tension was only on the inside. But now that it's gone, everything surrenders to the right place. Next step. Again, we're learning Rav Avram Tzvi Kluger, Karva El Nafshi, close to my soul. He continues the analogy. It has now come for this teacher, time for the teacher to deliver the shiur. He's been preparing it. He realized that even though he understood it and he knew it, that wasn't enough. That wasn't enough. He needs to be able to know it well enough that he could explain it clearly. Meaning, take the nimshal to ourselves. We know our soul. We know that we're supposed to be praying and doing good things. But if you don't take the time to explain clearly what your soul is all about and what it really needs, not externally, what it really needs, then you're not ready. But now let's say you're ready. Comes the time of the shiur. Ach, lo archa shalvas nafsho shel harav. But the teacher still is not at peace. Why? Kif kafatz alav rogzo shel Ruvain echad hatalmidim. One of his students, Ruvain, is angry with him. Hadvarim hanifloim yotzim min hakoach elapol lesimchas leiv kol mevin. He gave everything over with happiness and beauty. Va'az shol Ruvain, but suddenly comes that curveball. You're enlightened, right? You've got it. You're living with enlightenment. You've got it all figured. Lavdil Oprah has that word. You're living. What? You have your aha moment, and you're living with what? You're living your best life. She's got that word, that one word. You're living, whatever, with the lights turned on. That idea. Lights are turned on. You're living enlightened. You got it all figured out. And suddenly you're good, and then before you know it, Ruvain raises his hand in the class, and he says, Ma mashmos, what are you talking about? I don't understand what you're saying. It means nothing to me. I'm listening, and you, Rabbi, are just blabbering. It just words are coming out. And that question kills the Rav. It kills him. Because he thought he went through everything, and he realizes there is still a piece that he did not explain, that he did not clarify. Lo hichin lahem hasberim v'hakdamos. He didn't fully prepare all the pieces of the introduction. He took it for granted, all the pieces, before clarifying it. Now he realizes it's true. Vis-a-vis Ruvain, all the pieces were not clarified. Hareze ein efshari ata bi'itzumo shel shir hamuchan kvar leprate pratav la'avur le'inyanim eila ulaharchiv aleim behesber. Right? He realizes in the middle of the shiur, right, that he can't explain this perfectly. So what he tries is he tries to wing it. And he says, with this, that'll be enough. And he begins to give explanations and clarity, which all over the place. So now Reuven is going to work with him. We're going to see where this nimshal is going. Reuven says, let me work with you, Rebbe. Because they see the Rebbe is hungry to understand what was bothering him. Menasim ve'eno matzlichim lekasher inlin. They're not understanding the connection between all the points. So the Rav is getting excited in explaining with examples, and he's got charts, and he's got fancy iPad graphics and everything. He's giving answers. Achem notrim chesrechios, but they're still lacking the proper life, the students. They're not understanding it. Slowly, the class begins to unravel. Everybody's jumping on the bandwagon. Reuven cracked a hole in the shiur. Everybody is going wild now. Gam av chave ravase kamo. They begin to ask questions. They begin to whisper, the Rebbe's unraveling. The Rebbe's losing it. Watch him. Look at his face. He's losing it. And he's literally losing it. Betseiso min hashir. As he leaves the shiur, the Rav is makbid very much on what happened. It's bothering him. He's so sick over the class he just gave. He worked so hard. He's so sick over what just happened. He came out, he just got killed. He just got killed. He cannot go back to the students anymore. There's no way. He's embarrassed. He gave of himself, and it didn't work. How could Reuven come along? Ketzad yachbots Reuven zela horido arasfara. How could he just destroy him with one question? He unraveled the whole class. I was once in a class with Rav Tursky at YU. Rav Tursky is very meticulous on the details of his shiur. I remember once someone asked a question on one of the ideas. He's brilliant, he's a genius. Someone asked him a question on one of the details, and it was such a strong question. I remember he said, guys, close your books, class is over. He just canceled the rest of the class because he understood that with that question, the whole thing undid it. But this person, this Rav, in the analogy, which is us trying to have our conversation with our soul, we're trying, but it's not going. And suddenly he begins to develop a hatred towards his Talmidim, towards his students. Let me explain the analogy till now. You know what it means? We tried Yom Kippur to make some changes. We tried Rosh Hashanah one year to do a little better. We tried one year with a New Year resolution to be a better person, to be better to our soul. But our soul rebelled. We don't always feel great. We feel guilty. We feel like something's wrong. We slowly become an enemy towards ourselves. I tried to do something good. And this is how I'm rewarded with an emotional roller coaster. And there now is a clash. There now is a battlefield. We got to continue this. When we have minutes in between ends of Shiurim, we'll do it. You've been watching the longest Shiur.com. Really, we've been doing this about Lahagdil Torah v'Yadir, about promoting Torah, and about raising awareness for Jewish education. We really appreciate your support and everything you've been doing. Those who are in town, stop on by. We have a great group here. Some of you have been here intermittently since midnight. Some of you have been listening in Israel and different locations, different countries, and we appreciate you listening in. You want to make a donation, you could text 41444, text the word Torah to 41444, and we'll take it from there. And at the same time, you could also donate online at longestshir.com. Remember, the Siyum, when we finish, the last year's at 5 o'clock. When we finish at 6 o'clock, we're going to have a Siyum together with the entire middle school, who all have learned 18,000 questions on Sefer Bereshit, which will really make this celebration all the sweeter. I'll see you in a couple minutes.